This is one of those like, are we? We are live. Hi, hi, hi. So I am Kelly Swingler from kellyswingler.com, and I'm joined for, I think the second or third of our conversations by the fabulous Laura. Laura, tell us a quick bit about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm with Kelly today. I'm so excited. I am Laura. I own Eastside Staffing in New York. I own an HR recruitment business, and Kelly and I love talking about everything HR. We have a lot of really deep discussions off camera, and we've decided to take some of them on camera so that you can learn along with us. We're super psyched. And Kelly's having some challenges with her internet today, so we're going to bear with her if it starts to freeze.
Absolutely. So so today we're going to talk about curiosity and rest. I'm having challenges with internet. I am due to have carpet fitters turn up that should have been here 2 hours ago as well. So they may start banging in between. Apologies if the internet is not great today. Next time Laura and I come, it will be perfect. And my lighting's not looking too great either. I'm kind of going red and then all sorts of stuff. And then my phone's not on silent either. So it's going to be one of those days. Let's see where we go. So do you want to kick us off, Laura, with a bit on the curiosity? Like, why did we want to bring curiosity into today's conversation?
Yes, I would love to. So earlier this year, I decided to write out my company values, and that was a really fun exercise in this pandemic to really think about, okay, why did I start my company 7 years ago? What do I really try to embody? And curiosity is one of my 3 values. And I realized I love learning and asking questions, and one of the best parts of working with HR pros and in recruiting is just constantly learning about human behavior and psychology and how we behave certain ways and how we work at work. So anyway, all of that said, the other day, I'm staying at my parents' house, and they were painting the living room, so we had to take everything out of all of the cupboards and the drawers. And I found this cute little Alice in Wonderland statue. And I said, Mom, where is this from? And she said, oh, this was in your childhood room, which I can't believe I don't remember. She said, you loved this story, which I know I've always loved the story of Alice. And I just found it so interesting because really for me, the story of Alice has so much around curiosity, right? And this feeling of maybe even when you're a little bit lost, being willing to kind of stay open to just new adventures and new ideas. And I thought, what a perfect symbol in 2020 for like what we're all experiencing. So yeah. And then I found out you love Alice in Wonderland too. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I think, and then I found out, then we found out I love Alice. So yes, I think you'd posted a little picture of her, hadn't you? And I was like, oh my God, like that was one of my favorite ever books as a child. And I also I could remember I got like a hand-me-down dress from one of my cousins, and I called it my Alice dress. It was from a UK store called Laura Ashley, and it was in a navy. It was like a navy blue, and where Alice wears like her little apron over the top, it had these kind of bits of fabric that came down that then had like little polka dots on them, with these little bits of fabric, and then this bit around the waist that kind of made it look like a bit of a spotty apron on these little stripes, but with the biggest bow on the back of it, like Alice has on the back of hers. And that was my Alice dress. And I wore it everywhere until I outgrew it. And my dad will still say to me now, if I go into kind of daydream mode, like my dad is like, are you having another Alice moment? And I think just the whole story, I think I've read all of the different connotations of it. I've watched all of the different films. I've watched the cartoons. But I think there was just something about that kind of curiosity and that imagination that I just absolutely loved. And I think from my perspective, and I suppose from an HR perspective, and within all of my work, we are both curious people. Right? We want to get to the bottom of things. We want to get to the root of things. And for me, I think I did a post on this years ago, but also speaking to HR people, like, do we ask why enough? So when we're being asked to do all these changes or write all these policies or do things a certain way, Like, do we ask why enough? And I don't think we do. I think a lot of the time we just go off and do it. Whereas actually, if we just asked why, if we got curious about why things needed to happen or why things needed to be put in place, we could make such a big difference. And I think in some ways we're afraid to be curious. We're afraid to ask those questions. And actually for me, and I think we both kind of share this, like I like getting curious. I don't just want to know that you want something doing. I want to know why you want it, and I want to get to the root cause of it and make sure that we're answering the right question or doing the right thing. And maybe that's why I kind of love the coaching stuff so much. But I just have this natural curiosity, and I know that you're exactly the same.
Totally. And it's funny because you and I both love Brene Brown, and she has explained that her style of research is that she doesn't know the outcome. She's not working towards a specific goal. She's literally gathering the data, gathering the information, and then trusting the journey to see what it tells her. And that's like so much why I think Alice, it's like all connecting, this idea of like when I go into a hiring process with a new hiring manager, I'm not going in arrogantly saying, okay, we're going to do A, B, C, and D, and this is going to be the outcome. I'm often telling them there will be surprises along the way. We will challenge ourselves along the way. There will be aha moments about yourself, about me, about the process, about your company. Like it is a creative and curious process if it's done well. But you're right. I think that takes a certain level of humility to acknowledge, like, Alice did not go into that dream, into those woods with like a specific plan and mission. It was just like you're letting it kind of unfold, right? And so much of HR is about so cool. So anyway, that's how you and I were talking about rest, and I said it's so funny because I think it ties in this curiosity about the word rest and like what is rest and are we doing it well? And so that's why when people are like, how come you chose curiosity and rest as the topic today? Like, we're getting to it. It's this idea of just asking so many questions to try and learn.
Yeah. And it is that asking, you know, and I suppose similarly to what you've just said about the kind of recruiting process, like lots of people will go into organizations, will go into companies, will go into their careers with this kind of end goal in mind. And I know, like some of the, you know, when in the early days of first starting the business, first starting Chrysalis, it was, you know, we want a consultant to come in and help us with this particular problem. But actually, if you get curious and if you ask the questions, the problem that they want fixing is very rarely the problem that you're there to fix. If you know what I mean. It's like they want something, or I don't know, they think they want a pay reward scheme, but actually it's nothing to do with pay reward. It's about management, or it's about communication, or it's about leadership, or it's about culture. It's something else. Like pay's not the issue. Let's understand the root cause of that. And that comes from those curious conversations. That comes from the digging. That comes from the asking. That comes from the wanting to get to know and wanting to understand. Whereas I'm sure, you know, and like you said, from a recruitment perspective, whereas I'm sure lots of consultants and lots of recruiters would just go in and be like, I'll deliver what it is that you want. But sometimes what you want isn't necessarily what you need. And I don't think we can get to that point without that level of curiosity in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. It's funny, like, as you're talking, what's coming up for me is this notion that it's probably easy for most of us to say why about something else, but it's very hard to say why about yourself. So like if you're a hiring manager and you're doing something wrong, right? It's harder to say, why am I doing this? Right? Like, why am I indecisive? Why am I struggling to follow the process? Why am I struggling to challenge my biases? Like, it's easier to just talk about it like objectively when it's something else. But the harder work, and I think the key in HR is to really be able to say, why do I do this? Why have I been doing this? And, you know, that's how we're going to evolve if we all take some time to self-reflect on it too. I know it's something we both do, but we definitely encourage others to do as well.
Mm.
Here's Kelly's internet challenge right now with the little freeze, but she's with us. So I have on my desk
that self-reflection again is key, isn't it? Because we get so busy, don't we? And again, like you said, this feeds into the kind of rest conversation, but we get so busy, we're so in the moment, we're so through. Yeah, absolutely. But without that self-reflection, if you are just constantly going, kind of 500 miles an hour all of the time, I think that you can lose a lot of that curiosity, not because you're not curious, but just because you're not giving yourself the headspace to ask the questions, to do that.
Right.
Is it still going? Sorry, we're in.
No, you're with us. You're with us. You're just doing that like kind of Lego pixelation thing. So I keep this mirror now on my desk to remind people, like, look inward, like look at yourself.
I don't know. I can see Laura moving. I don't know if Laura can see me.
Yeah. It's working. I'm messaging you. I can see and hear you. Yeah, the last thing I would say is just like it's really important to self-reflect when you're in HR, especially as a leader, but I mean really at all levels, to think about like what you can do differently.
Keep going, Laura, maybe.
Yeah, of course, I will. I'll keep talking. To really like consider what you're doing on your own journey and how you're self-reflecting.
I think we are still.
Yeah. And that's probably why Kelly and I love Alice so much, is she's willing to look at herself and ask questions. It's just really important. So yeah, if you're an HR professional or talent acquisition professional trying to evolve in this climate, the first thing you have to do is get curious about yourself. And then you can obviously get curious about others. All right, Kelly is logging out and logging back in. So I'll talk to you on my own. We've got the chat box open too. If you're here live, you're more than welcome to chime in with any questions. So yeah, when we're talking about curiosity, I think it's hard. I think it's hard for a lot of people to feel they're willing to ask themselves, why do I do that? Or how can I change going forward? But so important. So we're curious to know if you have really looked into that value yourself, and if you've thought about asking questions and being curious. Certainly something I would recommend. Kelly and I are going to talk about rest soon, because the interesting part is lately it's coming up for me a lot where HR pros do not really prioritize their own rest. And so she and I have been really curious about why that is. She's coming back. She's here. Welcome back. Kelly, you can check the chat. I've been chatting with you there. I see you and I can hear you. It's all good.
I think I'm back. We'll see how long I last.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I have you in the chat.
The joys. Am I still really bad?
No, it's okay now.
I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can do at my end. Keep talking, Laurie. You're doing an amazing job.
You got it. Okay. I'm transitioning over to rest because I actually think this is a really important part of our conversation. And so where Kelly and I have been curious is this notion that people in HR are struggling to rest. Yes, I've been typing with you too, Kelly, just to make sure you have it there. Bear with her. She's moving house this week and internet is spotty. Okay, so the notion about rest, here's what's happening. So we're seeing HR pros say, oh, I have been so exhausted and can't rest, or haven't rested and haven't taken a break. And so the level of burnout is just skyrocketing and very concerning to Kelly and I. What has been the most interesting for me is this notion that HR pros feel they have to earn the rest as opposed to taking it intermittently before they need it, before the burnout starts to happen. And so I've been curious about what pressure we put ourselves under to feel like we have to deserve or earn that break, right? Because we need the break all the time, even if we're having a slow week at work or a slow period in HR. If we wait until the point of burnout, I don't know if it's even, helpful, right? Or if the rest is then just literally a crash, which is not really probably doing a lot. So it's something that hopefully when Kelly comes back, she can join us in this conversation, because it is something to stay curious about. I know for me, it's hard for me sometimes to rest if I'm not super busy, because then I don't feel like I can or should, right? My time is better served hustling or being ambitious or trying to drive my business forward or be creative and innovative. And so there's always this kind of inner pull to produce, to do, to achieve, when actually it's also important that I take a minute just to recharge and rest and kind of let myself relax, which I know for many of us is very hard. So I'd be curious if you're seeing this now, if you want to chat or if you want to message me or Kelly later. I am curious to know if you have struggled with this also, and if you've had any epiphanies around feeling like you need to earn the rest, or if you've let yourself just take it, and how you encourage your HR teams to do the same. Because I think a lot of HR pros I talk to really take the cue from their leaders. If their leaders are burning out and working 15 hours a day, they have a lot of a harder time in terms of taking their own breaks. So food for thought. Gosh, it's hard talking without Kelly. She's such an exciting person to brainstorm with. She'll be coming back soon. I know she's probably just restarting her computer. I'm going to open up my email just to make sure if she wants to message me. It's here. I'm curious if you all have followed Alice in Wonderland in your life, or if there have been other people that have inspired you in literature and film to help your HR career. I think it's nice for us to have some creative play and that, figures or factors that help guide us, right? We need to kind of pull inspiration from lots of different places. So anyway, I was so happy to find Alice, and now she's going to sit on my desk and remind me about my value of curiosity and to keep asking questions. And as I said earlier, I think it's really important to ask yourself why you do certain things. Like, I've been curious about why I feel like I need to work so hard without breaks. Like, what is that about? And is it something that I can just work on? And of course it is. You just have to be aware of it and then sort of make a concerted effort to improve it. I think sometimes the best hiring managers I've worked with have been willing to say, oh, I'm surprised that I do A, B, and C, or it's been interesting to observe that I do these things, and then how can I improve? Look who's here, all clear and exciting.
Am I back?
Yes, you're so clear. I have been holding down the fort, talking to all of our viewers.
I'm sure you have been doing an amazing job. I have no doubt about that at all.
So welcome back.
Thanks.
Please take the floor. I was just starting to talk about rest, and I was talking about how I think we have been curious, you and I have been curious about why people feel, and why certainly we have had the same feeling, that we have to earn the rest. So it's like, oh, I worked 15 hours a day yesterday, so now I can take a break. Instead of just taking it intermittently when we need it.
Yeah, I think we've got to the point, haven't we, where we kind of feel, and I think there is some guilt attached to this. I think some of it comes from a self-care perspective. I think some of it is, and it is this need to earn. I think there is something definitely for us within HR. I think there is definitely something for us as business owners. There is definitely something for us as women, in that it's like there is this, like, we feel we have to earn it. Like, you can't just take 10 minutes. I know I have had numerous conversations with you during lockdown about, like, go and spend some time at the pool. Get outside, enjoy the sunshine, go for a walk, go for a rest, have an early night, enjoy weekends away, all of that sort of stuff. And it's like there is this guilt attached to taking that time out. I haven't earned it enough. Like, I've not been working hard enough. I've not been doing all this stuff. And I think from my perspective, and this is something that we were talking about a couple of days ago, wasn't it? It's like when I hit my burnout in 2013, or before then, the only time I would really rest would be when I was having a holiday, right? If I was away with the family, that would be my point of rest. But during the week, I would be full on all day, every day, all weekend, every weekend. And I would feel guilty about if I needed to say, I just need to sit down for an hour, or I'm going to go and have an early night. Like, I genuinely felt guilty by it. But I think I have learned since then, it's not something that you have to earn. And the more rest that you can take, like, the more productive you become, the happier you become, the more patient you are. There's so many benefits to it. It's not something that we have to earn. And I think we've got to a point of feeling like busy and stressed is like some sort of badge of honor. You know, like if I'm not telling you I'm flat out exhausted, shattered, busy, manic, all of those sorts of things, like maybe you'll think I'm failing as a business owner, or maybe you'll think I'm not bringing in enough money, or maybe you'll think that I'm not successful enough, or I won't feel successful enough, or any of that sort of stuff. And it's like we've got to stop wearing these things as badges of honor. Like they're doing us no good whatsoever.
Totally. It's so weird. I forgot till you said that. I wrote a blog on LinkedIn. We'll have to pull it up later. It might have been 5-6 years ago now. It says like, are we wearing busy? I think the title is, are we wearing busy as a badge of honor?
Yeah.
And like the damage that does even for the HR brand and for the organization, it's like, even if you can't see it for yourself yet, if you can try and see it for like the ecosystem around you, it's so bad.
Yeah.
And I think you've really hit something for me on this, like, need to earn it. And like, I think what comes up is this feeling of not doing enough, right? So it's like, maybe I haven't done enough to earn the rest. It's like, but what is enough? Like, who is measuring that? It's like, there's no barometer for like, that's enough to deserve it. So you'll never reach that. Like, I think that's kind of your own barometer. You have to know it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we were talking about also, weren't we? Like when it comes to enough as well, like from a success perspective, like who says what success looks like? Success for me may be very different to success for you. Success may be freedom, it may be happiness, it may be job title, it may be status, it may be income, it may be balance. It could be a number of things. And ultimately, again, I learned as a result of my burnout the importance of gratitude, the importance of accepting where I am, being appreciative of where I am, and being happy with where I am, recognizing that I am enough, that I have enough, that I do enough. Can there always be more? Of course there can. Yeah. And you know, and I work with coaches, you work with coaches, we run courses, we're both big believers in personal development and all of that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that I am not enough as I am today.
Right. Yeah, and it means like this is hard work and we practice it all the time.
Absolutely.
You know, Kelly was teasing me that I should share a story from last week, because it's true that we also struggle with this still, even though we're talking about it. Because she needed to reschedule a call with me, and instead of just saying I need to reschedule the call, thanks, she gave me the litany of reasons why, and it was sort of the classic apologizing for having other priorities. And I reminded her, you don't have to explain yourself. I love you as a friend. You are enough to me, whether you're busy or not busy. It's okay. And it was a good moment for both of us to remember, like, why are we over defending or over explaining? Let's just sort of sit with like, the acceptance without the added explanation. So we're practicing it too.
It is, and I think, again, last week was a really useful. They're knocking at the door. I think I may have locked the front door. Bear with me. I am here today.
These are the carpet guys coming for her new house.
Hi, come on through. I'm just on a call, but feel free to come on up. Yeah. Perfect.
And the point that we were making was like, why do we sometimes feel like we have to defend ourselves or over-explain ourselves? It's really kind of the challenge of all of this. Yeah. This need to over-explain or over-defend, it becomes kind of totally counterproductive with this notion of rest, because then we're just sort of hustling again instead of just saying it, like just saying what we need.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to say calling me out, but I think you calling me out on that last week was really important, because it felt like I did need to have a reason. Like, these conversations are important for us. They're important for the HR community. We want to keep on doing them. But it was a case of, I can run and panic and be stressed and not really present.
or I can say today's just not a good day for me. Right. But rather than just saying today's not a good day for me, it was, and these are all of the reasons why. And I think some of it was a release. It was like, I've just got to get this stuff out there. Some of it was, I suppose, me wanting to let you know that there were important reasons, like I wasn't just ditching you. But also then for you to just say, and I can't remember the exact response, but it was something along the lines of like, I value you enough or trust you enough so that even if you needed to say, today's just not a good day, that would be enough. It was like, oh, okay. But then there's something about relationships, isn't there? Like if you had said to me, today's not a good day, that would have been absolutely fine. We've brought today's call forward. You've got an appointment that you need to go to. That's absolutely fine. We don't need the excuses, and yet we make them anyway.
Yeah.
And that was a real, and now, like I said, I'm going to say that was calling me out, because that was like, oh, I could have just said, today's not a good day, Laura. But I heard a good phrase recently to apologize.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a good phrase recently that was like, instead of calling us out, we're kind of calling each other up. Like we're calling each other to elevate, to like, you know, it's like we want to pull each other up. It's like, I'm calling you up on something that we see, and it is really important. And that's why I know you and I always tell HR pros, like, make a friend or two in the business, have peers that you can do this with, because like it is a lonely profession if you're not talking about this with other people. Like I've been getting so many emails from HR peers who I trust and who I've built relationships with, and they're telling me I'm not taking rest, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not doing enough, I'm not performing enough, I'm not achieving enough. The word enough keeps coming up because it's like they're feeling like they have to do enough to rest.
Yeah.
And to your point, when is that going to be? You have to just decide. It is a choice. I am choosing to rest now.
Yeah.
It's really profound.
It is that choice. It is that choice. And it's the power of that choice. Again, you and I will both know, as business owners, we could be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Absolutely, we could.
Absolutely.
But even from an employed perspective, and again, some of this was leading to my burnout, but the fact that I could keep pushing and pushing and pushing for 8, 10, 12, 16 hours a day, ultimately that was a choice. Because again, from my perspective, had I done enough today? Had anybody else thought I had done enough today?
Right.
Even when I had been doing 14, 16 hour days, would people think I was lazy? And it's like that, to even say that now is ridiculous.
Right.
I wasn't having lunch breaks. I wasn't drinking throughout the day. I wasn't eating throughout the day. I really wasn't sleeping very much. And at no point did any part of my head or my body be like, you could really do with a rest today, Kelly. Just chill a little bit. Like, just chill. It was like, I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going. And then you get to the weekend, and you know, from my perspective, I've got friends to catch up with. I've got sons to look after. I've got the dog to walk. I've got decorating to do. I've got cleaning to do. I've got this to do and this to do and this to do and shopping. And you know, all of this kind of stuff. And I don't know, you know, I don't know where it was coming from. I don't know why I kind of felt the need to do it. And again, to your point about the enough part, I think we've had this conversation before, but I can remember, so I was HRD in London at the time, and there'd been this thing for me, like I would be happy and I would have enough when I was earning the 6 figures, when I was in this, you know, massively important position. And I'd been invited to a round table, HRD round table discussion at the Houses of Parliament. And I can remember going from our offices in London round to the Houses of Parliament on the tube. And in terms of the jewellery that I had on, so the jewellery, the clothes, the bag, the suit, everything, I was probably wearing around £10,000 worth of stuff, right? Jewellery, watch, rings, shoes, bags, all that kind of stuff. And I think up until that point, it had been like, when I get all of that, that will be enough. And I can remember sitting on the tube that day feeling totally and utterly miserable and just thinking, like, I'm not happy. None of this stuff has made me happy. None of this stuff has done everything. And that was the point, I think, was kind of one of my turning points in terms of enough. I am enough.
Right.
I deserve time out. I deserve rest. I deserve whatever it is that I need. And yet, I think as I have then gone on, so that was what, 7 years ago, I would no longer say it's about deserving.
Yeah.
The same as it's not about earning, it is about choice.
Yeah. It's so true. It's really funny. What was the catalyst for our conversation today was that I follow this big influencer on Instagram who's always talking about rest and balance. But her post was funny because it said, like, and I forwarded it to you, I think, but it just said, like, oh, I had such a busy, crazy week, so today I'm letting myself rest. And so I challenged her in the comments to say, like, actually, the harder work is to do this when we don't have to kind of burn out to do this. And I think I hit a chord because I could tell even the way she replied to me, it was like hard. And it is hard because you're right. It's hard to admit, oh, I'm doing that. And then you have to ask seriously, why do I do that? And it is a lot of ego, right?
Yeah.
It feels good to be very busy. I feel proud if someone's like, how was your week last week? And I'm like, oh, I worked really hard. Worked 10 hours a day. I did A, B, and C. It's like fun to talk about the achievements you have. It's harder work to say, oh, last week I just sat in nature and pondered the meaning of life and rested and meditated and did yoga and napped. I mean, that's harder for many of us to say. But like, I want to challenge that. I don't like that ego that wants to just always be hustling, right?
No. And I think you'd said as well, hadn't you, as part of that conversation, because I think there was a point, like, I'm doing it, like, I'm trying to do this, like, I've been for a walk, I'm now sat by the pool reading the paper, like, I'm trying, like, I'm practicing, I'm doing it.
Effort. Yeah.
I'm making the effort to make it happen. And I think my reply, like, the more we do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
I think that's what we have to realize. The guilt goes, and it is, I am doing this because it is beneficial.
Yeah.
I am doing this because it is enjoyable. I am doing it, all of the reasons, whatever it is that you find for doing it. But that's the point that we need to get to. I'm doing this because it matters, because I am worth it.
Yep.
Because I need it, because the more I do it, the more I will enjoy doing it. The guilt will go.
And I don't think other professionals have the same level of guilt. I do, and I think to your point, this is pretty specific to HR, to a women-dominated field. It's so funny, Kelly. I wasn't even planning to talk about this with you publicly, but now that we're here, I feel like I have.
Go for it.
So yesterday, I had this, like, the classic mansplaining call. Like, it was just awful. And so someone was referred to me, and he was a male business owner who'd been in recruiting years ago and decided just to talk to me like I was 5 years old on the call. Like, it was a lot of the classic, like, so how's business? And I was like, well, do you want the honest answer? Like, it's been challenging because it's 2020 and need I say more? And he said, well, if it's been hard, have you done? And then listed for 20 minutes, like, all the things I could do, business development, sales calls, database calls, emails. Have you tried recruiting, networking? Have you built a community? It was wild. And I really was so nervous about how to respond because I kept thinking, he's hitting all my triggers because he's asking me, like, have you done enough? Have you been doing enough? Right? And I was like, like, I do so much. Like, it's just, you're telling an overachiever, like, have you achieved enough? And I kept thinking of you, and I was thinking of all the things we're practicing, and I just, like, at some point I basically kind of cut it off and said, look, I'm doing a lot. I'm doing probably more than I would have even imagined I could do in a pandemic. I have relaunched my website. I've built a coaching business. I have emailed over 6,000 HR posts one by one since March. I have done YouTube channel videos. I have done podcasts. I've done speaking engagements. So for you to tell me things I'm not doing isn't very helpful. part of this is out of my control, and this is part of being in a pandemic and an election year and a difficult time for the HR population, but it's not about me not doing enough. And he said, oh yeah, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. And I was like, yeah, I am. I'm doing all the right things. And I just realized it's so funny how someone else can tell us like what we're not doing, even if we don't ask. I wasn't asking for it.
Yeah.
And it was a classic moment of me having to challenge this, like, okay, someone else can tell you to do more, and then you have to decide if you're taking all that on.
And it comes back to that choice again, doesn't it? And it comes back to the curiosity, and it comes back to the rest. So we spoke, didn't we, very, very early on in the pandemic, and we were like, you know, we need to be speaking to each other more. That's resulted in more one-to-one conversations with us, offline conversations with us, these sorts of conversations, and all of those sorts of things. From an outsider perspective, from a friend perspective, not only have you been doing all of that, but you have been very visible. You have been offering help and support to the HR community. You have been reaching out to lots of people. You're, you know, speaking engagements. So all of those sorts of things, and that's been choice. And what has probably been more difficult for you during the pandemic has been taking the time out to rest. And again, some of that maybe, right, okay, it's a difficult year. And again, we spoke about this, didn't we, very early on. Like, we want to keep helping the HR community. We want to stay visible. We want to be doing all of this stuff. And then again, the kind of guilt can come with it, because actually, if I am sat by the pool, or if I'm, you know, if you're out sat by the pool reading the Times and I'm out walking the dog, are we visible enough? Are we helping enough? Are we reaching out to the HR community enough? Are we doing everything that we possibly can to support? But again, the other side of that is, if that's all we're doing, when we come out of the other end of this, you and I are going to be knackered, like needing, you know, ill, run down, all of that kind of stuff, because we have to choose to take the time out so that we can continue to be doing that giving for others. And again, I would imagine, I don't know, and I don't know who it was that you had the conversation with, but thank you very much for sharing, and thank you very much for sharing. I butted again there. I would suspect that maybe he has been quite heavily hit during the pandemic, like a lot of us, but also hasn't been doing the support and doing the stuff for everybody else, and has maybe been in a bit of a panic, maybe has taken a bit of downtime, because what else could he do? Instead of maybe, and again, I don't know the individual, but potentially he's been off feeling a little bit sorry for himself. So actually, it's a temperature check and a comparison check. I need to see what everybody else is doing now, because I need to know if I've been doing enough during lockdown. What has everybody else been doing? But you can very, very proudly say, this is all of the stuff that I've been doing, and this is why I've been doing it, and this is why it's been important. But I think, you know, as a friend for you, and you know, we've had this conversation many times, I think I have seen both of us struggle a bit more with taking the rest and taking the downtime, because we've wanted to keep on giving to everybody else.
Exactly. And when we feel like we haven't done enough to rest, that's one thing. If we're starting, like I did yesterday, if we're starting to hear from other people, oh, maybe you're not doing enough, maybe you could be doing more, we really have to shut that down. Because for those of us who are already dealing with that internally, we cannot start taking it from other people. So I think it's really important, and that's why I just decided to share it, because I think if HR leaders, and many have told me, you know, they're struggling to rest because they don't feel like they're performing well enough, then their CEO is kind of feeling pressure. So he or she is saying, you know, do me a favor, work on Saturday, let's get this done. It's like nobody, you have to like shut off the external voices, because the internal voices are loud enough if you're someone who's putting pressure on yourself. For those of you who are not putting pressure on yourselves, different story. But it's really important that we're kind of like putting up the boundary around, which we talked about last time, but putting it around this notion of rest, because we have to decide. This guy I talked to yesterday, I don't even know, he has no right to tell me if I'm worthy of rest or not. It's like, that's my choice. How much he wants to hustle is his choice. Right? It's like, it was a big moment of, oh, okay, let's practice what we preach. Like,
Yeah. And I suppose there's two things there, isn't there? So again, on that barometer of enough that you spoke about a moment ago, where are you on your barometer of enough? Where is he on his barometer of enough?
Yeah.
And are you on completely different scales and completely different barometers in terms of that anyway?
Right.
He doesn't know where you are on that. And again, as an overachiever, and again, we've both been there with this, telling an overachiever that they're not achieving enough can, like, I mean, that's like total like head mess, isn't it? Like, oh my god, like, what more should I be doing? Laura, help me.
It was awful.
I also think
well, let's just take a moment with that, Kelly. That's like a big deal. That's a big deal. I don't think people realize that if you're an overachieving person and someone tells you you're not achieving enough, that's like, it's a lot in your head.
Massively.
Yeah. It's really crazy.
And again, when I get that, that can be anxiety, overwhelm, fear of failure. That can knock my confidence.
Yeah.
I go into what haven't I done? You know, all of that kind of stuff. Like that could be enough to get me panicking for a month.
Totally. Same here. Same here. And that's why I had to shut it down. I was like, whoa, a year ago I might have let him go, and I would have like written notes about ideas of things I should do. And I said, okay, hold on. You know, who is this opinion I'm trusting? Is this someone I need to listen to? Do I want this advice right now? Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like we have to, as overachievers, learn when to like rein it in.
Like I was speaking to my other half last week. So as we've seen by my awful internet connection, so we're in the process of moving house. So we got the keys 2 weeks ago tomorrow. We didn't do anything for the first couple of days. And a week last Saturday, I started decorating. Was going to have all of this help that didn't materialize. And then, you know, a few people have kind of come in to help with a few bits and pieces every now and then. So this house is massive, right? And I don't say that to kind of beat, but the rooms are big and there are lots of rooms. And over the course of the last week, I have almost single-handedly decorated 4 bedrooms, a living room, a conservatory, and the space that I'm in now. And yet I have still had days where I felt I haven't done enough. Like this study space, which will be much better when I've got all my artwork and everything all over it, and my internet's working and all of those sorts of things. I did this whole room yesterday in 3 hours, in addition to working stuff, in addition to sorting stuff, in addition to everything else. Got home, sorted dinner, walked the dog, still went to bed last night. Like, have I done enough today?
Yeah.
It's like, of course, like my other half was joking on a call this morning, you know, like what room are you going to magically decorate today? You know, are you going to kind of cough and spit a book out and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But I still have times with all of that I feel that I do not do enough.
Of course. But that's what we're trying to tell people. There's no magic pill to get over this. This is who we are, it's how we're built.
No.
I think it's really just challenging ourselves when we say it to a friend, like, and we're good at this with each other, but I know many who watch this probably need to practice it too. Like, instead of saying to a friend, like, oh, I worked 15 hours a day, so tomorrow I'm going to take the day off. Ask yourself, like, am I doing that because I feel like I earned it? And then, like, that's fine, but can I take a day off when I didn't work 15 hours a day the day before? And how would that look? And how would it sound? And can I try it?
Yeah.
Or can a Kelly call me and say, I haven't touched the dining room yet. I'm just living with it empty. Like, can you practice? And it's hard, for sure. It's really hard.
It is.
It's worth it when we're just hustling around. Like, it's really, I know.
Yeah.
A lot.
And we have to keep going. And if I may, I think coming back to your mansplaining explanation a moment ago, but I think, and you mentioned it again at the beginning, but I think also taking it back to the Brené Brown stuff, like, is that guy in the arena?
Right.
Is that guy part of your square squad? And I can quote Brené all day long.
Yeah.
With those sorts of things, and for those of you that aren't familiar with this, again, maybe this is another conversation that Laura and I can do, but There is I won't spoil it for any of you that don't know it. I'm sure lots of you watching will probably will, because you know I spout it all the time, and Laura speaks very passionately about it as well. But the Brené quote is really about, you know, like if somebody else is giving you criticism and they're not in the arena doing the hard work and getting their ass kicked at the same time, they do not deserve the time or space to give you criticism.
Yeah.
And so from that guy's perspective, is he in the arena?
Yeah, the answer is no. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And Brené also says, to that end, this idea that actually whose opinion matters of you is very small. It's your own opinion of yourself, and maybe literally 2 or 3 max people in your life, really. Your spouse, your parent, your best friend, maybe your boss. Like, that's it. You don't need approval from everyone around you. And I think in 2020, with this desire to be just so overachieving and not resting, we kind of have to just tune out all the other opinions and just check yourself. Like,
yeah,
it's funny. I told someone the other day on a phone call and thought, why am I not taking my own advice? He was like, I'm trying so hard, I'm doing so much. And I was like, okay, maybe it's like driving a stick shift. Like, if you're always in 5th gear, the car will burn out. Like, downshift, go into 2nd gear. And he was like, oh, what a good analogy. I was like, just picture it. Just go into 2nd gear, like coast a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I got off the phone and was like, God, have I been in 2nd gear once since March? Like, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
And actually, like, it's because I used to till March, define my success in very achievable ways, right? How is my quarterly revenue or my monthly progress or my achievements? Like, I'm such a goal setter and have trips planned and rewards planned. And so this year I've had to obviously unlearn all of that and just kind of start with a new mindset, which is like, okay, clearly my achievements are going to look different. So I have to rest when I feel like resting, not when I've achieved something.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, it's like, I make a big placement, I'll go away on a vacation for 3 days. Like, no, I can't do that now.
Yeah. And I have, again, started over the last few years, like you, I'm an overachiever. I've got lists and plans and projects and all of that kind of stuff. I have started to be able to focus much more of that on how I want to feel.
Yeah.
So how do I want to feel at the end of the week? Excuse me, sorry. I need to drink now. But like, how do I want to feel it by the end of the week? How do I want to feel by the end of the weekend? How do I want to feel after this house move is done and dusted? Like, do I want to feel absolutely burnt out and knackered, or do I want to be in a position where I could enjoy it? And I think this year, more so probably than any other, apart from obviously, you know, financial crash and all those sorts of things on the way back, I think so many of us are having to feel that we need to prove our worth and keep going. Because if at the end of it we lose our jobs, or let's say you and I have to close our businesses or any of that sort of stuff, if we had to answer the question, again, this comes back to the curiosity stuff, but if we had to answer the question, did I do enough to keep my business alive during 2020? If we had taken loads of breaks, taken loads of downtime, spent, you know, all the time by the pool, or all the time walking the dog, or all this time doing yoga, and the answer was no, then again, that comes back to that self-blame, self-guilt, self-criticism, all of those sorts of things. Whilst we have got companies in such a state of flux, and I know you've written about it, I've written about it, we're both speaking to people about it, the HR job market, we're looking at lots of redundancies, we're looking at lots of layoffs. So from an HR perspective, do you want to be the HR person who wasn't working 16 hours a day? And if then when it comes to layoffs and you have to answer the question, did I do enough to survive that lockdown? If you feel the answer to that is no, then again, you go into guilt, upset, frustration, anxiety, all of those sorts of things. And I think, again, it comes back probably full circle to kind of what is that barometer? What do we want it to be? Because from my perspective, yes, I've wanted to keep on helping, and I will always want to keep on helping. And I said this year that I would be more visible and I would help more and I would do all of those sorts of things. If I have to get to the point of burnout again in order for my business to survive this pandemic,
right.
It's not worth it. Not for me. It's absolutely not worth it. And I can start another company. I can do something else if I needed to. Obviously, I'd go out and I'd get a job. I'd be employed again, all of those sorts of things. I am not prepared to risk myself for whatever the outcome of that may be at the end.
Yep.
Had you have asked me that 7 or 8 years ago, I'm going to do everything it takes to keep my job going. I will be working flat out 18 hours a day. I will be doing this, and we'll be doing this, and we'll be doing this. I'm not going to be at that place anymore. Yeah. And again, my one, again, you and I have had this conversation many times. I would not want anybody to get to the point of being broken or burnt out for them to realize I am enough. I am deserving of rest and of break and of downtime. Because again, regardless, I think, of where we end up with this pandemic, all of us ultimately are replaceable.
Right.
Like businesses aren't going to, if we get to the point of burnout and our job is still needed, ultimately they're just, you'll get a placement, right? Yep. We need another HR director. We need another HR VP. We need another HR whatever. You'll get, you'll end up with the placements. The people that have left, what then happens to them? Because they will have given everything, sacrificed themselves, and to what end?
Yep. This is the part a lot of HR posts don't realize, is like they're hustling and hustling. And for what? Because it's like, it's such a deep discussion and something to stay curious about if there's someone who's doing that. Like, why am I working so hard? To impress my CEO? Is it for my own ego? Is it so I feel worthy of the salary I make? Is it so I feel worthy of this big title I have? I've heard these answers, so I'm not making those up. Those are reasons I've heard when I ask people why. And so it's important to there are no right or wrong answers, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. All of those reasons are truly valuable feedback for you on, okay, maybe that's a challenging story you've been telling yourself that you can change.
Yeah.
I have found that you're absolutely right. Most executives are not sitting in their houses saying, oh, my HR leader hasn't hustled hard enough. They really don't care. They have other fish to fry.
Yeah.
You're trying to win them over and people please them, but they're fine if you take a day off. They're fine if you rest. And if there's trust and respect, they're happy. And if you might set the example for them to take a rest.
And I hope so, because again, a lot of the HR, I have been speaking to HR, senior HR professionals at the top of the HR chain in terms of organizations that are in tears, that are breaking, that need help, that need support. They are speaking to their CEOs and they are getting no help or little help. Some are absolutely, I couldn't speak to them about it. And then they're asking for help and they're getting it. But there are a proportion that are asking for help and getting none. And again, to that end, if you are not putting yourself first, it's not going to happen.
Right.
It's not going to happen because your CEO is not going to knock on your door tomorrow. I've been thinking about go and treat yourself to a nice 5-day weekend. Not going to happen.
Right. I think we just have to challenge the why we're not doing it, why we haven't done it in the past, what's holding us back from doing it, and as a community trying to encourage each other. Every time I say the word enough this week to someone in HR, I hear the exhale. If I say, God, you're doing enough, they're like, oh, thank you. Or, it sounds like you've really done enough. Oh, thank you. It's like they don't feel it. And I get it. Because when that guy started challenging me yesterday, I felt it too. He's right. I forgot. I should start cold calling again. Who am I kidding? I haven't made a cold call in 15 years. It's not going to happen. You don't have to take that advice. Oh my gosh. So HR leaders, please know I will never cold call you. And that is
Me neither.
Yeah. It's really time that we let ourselves rest and that we stay curious about why we're not. And like I said, when you get curious about yourself, it's not always so pleasant. You do learn things about yourself that are kind of, hard to hear.
Yeah, some things will come and smack you in the face. Some things you'll just wish you could close the box again and not realize that you'd kind of let it out. But yeah, it's an ongoing, I suppose it's one of those things, isn't it? I think it's not so much a destination. I know it sounds really cliche, but it is just part of that journey. And I think from my perspective, the more self-reflection, the more self-development, the more rest I do, the more I realize I need, because it just keeps unlocking more and more stuff. It's like, oh, another layer, another layer, another layer.
Yeah.
And you just keep going with it. But I think we can enjoy it. We can make the most of it. We can have these sorts of conversations with like-minded people. We can do things differently. We can choose whether we allow ourselves to get curious and to rest, or whether we allow ourselves to ignore that curiosity and just keep going. Ultimately, it's choice, isn't it?
It's funny. I just did, you have to watch it now. It's on demand, but the Bamboo HR presentation that I did last week. So Kelly will tell us what she thinks next time. But one of the things I talk about there is when you're starting to get curious, you can use the phrase "what's coming up for me is." Like, it's a phrase I love. So it's like, you can call an HR peer and say, "Hey, I've been really curious lately about why I'm hustling so hard, and what's coming up for me is." You can't do that with everyone. That's what we're saying. It's a small group of people you trust that you can just bounce that off of them, because the likelihood is they're going to say, "Wow, yes, I've been there. Hold on, let me work with that. I like that. I want to think about that." It's like, since when are we not philosophical in HR? We should be. It's a profession that needs that.
Absolutely. It's about people.
Right.
Yeah.
We have to dig deeper.
Yeah. And we're only going to get the best out of ourselves and others when we keep digging.
Yeah.
Like the superficial stuff, like we can all do the superficial stuff. That's not where the real answers are. That's not where the magic happens. Like, we've got to keep going through those layers, digging deeper and deeper and deeper, getting to the core of ourselves, getting to the core of the people that we're working with. That's honestly, like, from my perspective, that is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
For us and for others.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Alice falls down the rabbit hole. Right?
Absolutely.
She has to go pretty far down to get some clarity.
Yeah. And to find the magic and to get all of that curiosity going.
And for anyone who doesn't realize, like, to be an HR pro who's human focused, you have to get curious. I mean, you have to really go here. It's not, I think you've hit the nail on the head. You can't be so, like, data logical all the time without this depth of thought.
No.
They work in tandem.
It's people. If we're dealing with numbers, I'm not saying obviously numbers aren't important. They obviously are, but 2 and 2 is always going to equal 4. I say always. Right. Somebody's going to come out with some like smart maths question now, but ultimately 2 and 2 equals 4. When it comes to people, we do all have different depths. We do all have different layers. We've all had different experiences. We've all got different understandings and perspectives and biases and unconscious biases and all of those sorts of things. And we will only understand all of that if we maintain that level of curiosity. If we genuinely want to put people first, be vulnerable, make differences, make changes, develop people, all of that kind of stuff, we have to get curious. We cannot just stick at that superficial level. We've got to keep digging. I
love it. So get curious about rest.
Yes. And
when you rest, curious. You can get curious. It all kind of connects.
One thing leads to another. One thing leads to another. Right, we will leave it there for today. A huge thank you to Laura for putting up with my internet connectivity. Huge thank you to those of you that have been watching and putting up with my internet connectivity. I had tested it, but we got there in the end. And thank you to Laura for kind of carrying that. So apologies for those of you who have had bits and pieces or it's been really, really shaky. Hope you enjoyed today. Laura, what are we talking about in 2 weeks' time?
I think we're going to talk about words and language that we're using and the way we communicate through words. So it'll be really important to hear us in 2 weeks on that one.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. It's going to be good. You've already got a list, haven't you? I've already got a list.
I started jotting down some phrases today that have been annoying me, and I was like, we should talk through these next time.
So yeah, so words of the power of language next time. Thank you to that. And if any of you have got any particular topics that you would like, I mean, Laura, honestly, like Laura and I are messaging each other constantly, like this will be a good live, and this will be, we've probably got a massive list. We have got a massive list between the two of us. But if you've got anything that you would like us to talk about, or if you've got any particular questions that you want us to answer, you can drop either of us a message via LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, just
we are everywhere.
Any social platforms, reach out, websites.
Exactly. These ideas do come from HR pros. We're not just making these up. These are things that we're hearing a lot about from our HR leaders and community. So we're doing this for you and with you, and we love your participation and your comments and everything.
Absolutely, yes. So
we'll see you on all the channels.
Yeah. Why? So we will see you in 2 weeks' time. There we go. We survived. We got through it. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody, and we will see you again next time. Take care for now. Bye.